Our region's business is sponsored by PNC Bank, solutions that help you achieve your goals in life. PNC, leading the way. And by Heffron Tillotson, a history of meticulous wealth management since 1948. Our region's business, innovation, transformation, momentum, improving our communities and driving technologies that will shape our region for generations. The collaboration that brings vitality, prosperity, and life to living. Stay with us for the coming half hour as we examine in depth our region's business. Now, here's your host, Bill Flanagan.
The Pittsburgh Summit, the pain and the payoff. Now that Pittsburgh's on the global map, how will we capitalize on the exposure and find out just what all those world leaders accomplished while they were here? But first, an assessment from one of the two regional leaders who started it all when they said yes when the President of the United States asked Pittsburgh to host the G20. Dan Onorato is Allegheny County Executive, and welcome. Good to see you.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, congratulations. It all turned out pretty well.
Oh, thank you, but we should thank everybody involved, for the public sector, the private sector, and the citizens of Western Pennsylvania. We all came together, and I think we pulled off a pretty good event, and we were a great host for the world and even for the protesters that were here peacefully. Now,
Mayor Ravenstal couldn't be with us this morning, but let me take back to the very beginning. When you all first got the call, did you really have a clear sense of just what a big deal this was going to be from a community organization standpoint?
When we first were called and we were told by the White House that we were on a short list to possibly host the G20, we sort of looked at each other and thought, that's pretty unbelievable considering Pittsburgh's a smaller city compared to New York and Washington, L.A., where you historically hear these things. So we weren't really sure that it was real because we were on a short list and maybe it was a courtesy ask. But once they showed up and started looking at the facilities and we were talking with their staff, it became very clear that we weren't just on the short list, we were the preferred site.
As you began digging into it, though, the sheer magnitude of the task ahead had to have been a little daunting.
Yeah, it didn't hit us at first the day they called us, but it didn't take long. I'd say a few weeks into reviewing what was required to host it, it became very clear how big this was going to be, but we always felt that we could pull this off collectively as a region.
How could you have that confidence, though? Because there are regions 5 times our size that haven't been able to pull this off as effectively.
Well, I think a couple things. The fact that we just came off of, when I say just, the last couple of years, the Baseball All-Star Game, the U.S. Open Golf Tournament, the Pittsburgh 250, the Bass Masters. So we sort of were on a roll of some pretty big events that had a lot of media coverage. Even though this was different and the security would be much different here, we felt confident we could put the teams together. We had a history of putting partnerships together, public-private, and pulling off these events. Plus, we had the advantage of knowing what went wrong in Seattle, what went wrong in London, and we called them, reached out to them, and we learned from their mistakes, so that helped us too.
Biggest lessons you think you learned from the mistakes others made that prevented that from happening here?
I think that it became very clear that we knew that we had to have the proper amount of policing and sharing that with the county, the city, the state, and then other agencies, but also establishing free speech zones and making sure that you had a way for everyone sort of to flow in and out of the event, but recognizing that you could have a few protesters that might want to cause problems, but be preparing for everything. So we prepared for the worst, and what happened was it never materialized. The protesters never materialized like the other cities, and it ended up being a great event and giving us an opportunity to continue to tell our story.
Now, as you're aware, criticism, though, from the protesters and some others about whether the police went too far both Thursday and Friday night, especially in Oakland.
Well, obviously, you're going to always get that. If you have one arrest, you're going to have criticism that you went too far because no one wants to be arrested. I would just say compare it to other events, compare it to other G20s or the WTO. It's minimal. The number of people that are actually in jail is minuscule compared to what's happened at other big protest rallies. There were so many free speech zones, and what got lost in all this is there were 15 to 20 peaceful protests that went on. They got their message out. No one was arrested. There was no property damage. So there was the ability to have peaceful protest, and I think that's why it was minimized in the jail.
Well, some credit to some Pittsburghers for helping with that. Leo Gerard and the Steelworkers, even the folks from the Thomas Merton Center, kind of helped to keep some control over this.
Absolutely. Those two groups you mentioned were extremely helpful. Leo Gerard reached out months in advance of this saying they historically do protests, but They have no intention of doing anything to disrupt the event. They want their message out. He worked with us. He worked with the city. He worked with the county. He worked with us permitting. We put together an event. He had it in Point State Park. It was very peaceful, but all of their messages got out. Their concerns about the G20, what changes they want to see done, how do you help the working person, and it worked. Their message got out. It was just as important to us as the G20's announcement coming in here. We treated everyone equally as long as it was going to be peaceful.
So what do you do now? It's over. You know, big achievement, incredible global coverage. How do you make the most of what just happened here?
Well, I think that the overall coverage, the good coverage, outweighed anything else that came out of this. So we really have a benefit here. Pittsburgh truly is on the global map. People are going to know Pittsburgh hosted the G20. And when you look at the companies that are always looking to invest in the United States, you can be sure that Pittsburgh's going to be on their list because they watch this play out. And if we could host a G20, we could easily talk to them about putting a business here. We had 4 or 5 organizations already call us wanting to be in the convention center because they heard about the LEED certification, the largest green convention center in the United States. They weren't even looking at Pittsburgh because it just wasn't on their radar. We're on a lot of people's radars now. Not just because they saw it on TV, but because we pulled off the event and it was successful, and people look at us and say, well, they're capable of handling these types of events. Maybe we should look there for our event or bring our company there.
Yeah, you mentioned the green building and everything else that's happened. Only a few seconds left, but it really is a testament to a lot of leadership that came before your term in office as well in teeing this up for Pittsburgh.
When you look at the brownfield story that we talked about and turning around this region, it goes back 2 or 3 administrations in the city, 2 or 3 administrations in the county. Former Mayor Murphy, for example, who was very active on brownfield reclamation within the city borders. Prior to me and in my administration, we expanded it outside the city limits, and we're bringing back the waterfronts. You're absolutely right. Credit can be spread around to a lot of people, and then don't forget about the private sector's partnership with us. It is a 30-year run, and it's really a testament to the residents of Western Pennsylvania.
All right, Dan Onorato, congratulations again. A great win for Allegheny County and the city of Pittsburgh.
Oh, thank you.
And next up, an assessment on the summit itself. Stay with us.